Welcome to the Dr. Berkson's Best Health Radio Show. The reason I have this show is so that we can, with all the chaos in life, try and see some clarity about how to enjoy the gift of our life a little bit more. Some of that's agile thinking, some of it's motivational, some of it's some tools in your tool bag. But most of us are so Velcroed to angst, we miss out on the gift, the true gift that it is to take a breath and have this life. So I recently heard this talk by someone who is a member of my comedy club. I belong to a Toastmaster comedy club. There's only 7 comedy clubs in Toastmaster. There's 330,000 Toastmaster clubs. So there's only 7 out of those 330,000 that are comedic oriented. And one of our members is Mike Carr. Mike Carr has been on the show before talking about listening, because I thought his speech that he gave at the club on listening was extraordinary. But he recently became the #1 speaker in the world, which is a process of almost a year of all these 330,000 clubs giving their best speakers who feel like entering this contest called Best Speaker. And you go up and up and up. And of course, this year in the pandemic, it was all online. And Mike won, number one. And I was in Cape Cod when I was getting emails from everyone that know and love him that he won. So the people I was staying with in Cape Cod, we all sat around the computer and we put up his speech. And we were absolutely floored that in a 7-minute period of time, Mike changed our world. He took us through this terrain of wanting to fully occupy our life in a way that gives us so much more juice about being alive than not. And I told him I wanted to have his speech on the show and have him talk a little bit about how he accomplished this. In 7 minutes, he takes you to another world. At the end of the talk, we spontaneously, the 3 of us listening to him on our computers, we just all jumped up in this little house in Cape Cod and gave bravo, 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 because it was so phenomenal. So anyway, what we're going to do is first we're going to show the talk, and then we're going to chat with Mike Carr, because he's an amazing man. He's got more kids than a little old lady in a shoe, almost. He's got 8 kids, and he still hasn't gone crazy. He's like a cool, calm, grounded dude. And he gets to enter speech contests and win them while he has that much going on in his life with, I think he has 100 animals also. So we're going to go listen. This is the #1 speaker of the world of 2020 in my club from Austin, Texas, inspiring us beyond belief in a 7-minute period. And then we're going to have Mike on the show after we've heard this. So we're going to see how screen sharing succeeds in this. And we are going to bring this up.
She was blue, not just her fingernails and her closed eyelids, but also the hue of her cheek and the curve of her shoulder. Her lips were also blue, I noticed as I moved my mouth away from her mouth. And then she opened her eyes and she looked at me and she said, "You're not a bad kisser." Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, my friend Maria Kirkland was born with a heart condition called stenosis that left her blood under-oxygenated and left her very pale skin a bluish color. I had known her as long as I could remember, and I thought she was just so cool because I had other blonde friends. I had other friends who were brown and black, but she was my only friend who was blue. We had become very fast friends because she loved to laugh at everything and every time. She was the kind of friend that told me about the guys she was dating, and I told her about the girls I was going out with. And then about 3 or 4 times in the 17 years that I knew her, we were standing in the shadow of a building or a bus or a birch tree. Her small chin rose toward mine and she kissed me. And I was glad to kiss her back. On this particular day, though, she was blue. It was rare to see Maria in a sad mood, but as I came around the corner at school that day, I could tell that something was wrong. "Mike," she said, "I'm going to have another surgery." When I asked for what, her eyes cut over at me and she said, "I'm going to have a lip replacement because you're such a bad kisser." And I laughed. But as I laughed, she stared down at the floor for a long moment. And then it was gone, and she was sunny again. And she started telling me about how the night before at dinner in front of her very conservative grandmother, she got her words all mixed up and accidentally said a very bad word in front of her entire family. And I laughed so hard I blew milk out my nose. I didn't see Maria for the next several days. I was sitting in Latin class and a note came to my teacher, and it said that my mother was here at school and she wanted to see me. That's weird. I got out of class and I headed toward the principal's office, but my mother met me halfway. "Mike," she said, "Maria died in heart surgery this morning." All of a sudden, my mother's voice sounded like it was in a tunnel. It was blue, the sky the day of Maria's funeral. I just remember thinking how wrong it was that the most beautiful day of the year decided to wait to show itself until the darkest day of the year. All these wonderful things were being said about my dear friend, but I sat in the back of the chapel and I was numb because there was this portrait up at the front of the chapel that Maria's family had painted of her. In it, she was all beautiful and blonde and pink, not blue at all. That angered me so much, I ran out of the back of the chapel into the graveyard, running among the graves, looking at all of them and seeing none of them. Why was I so upset by some silly pink portrait? I wouldn't know the answer to that until I went into the mountains about 12 months later just to clear my head, just to breathe in some clean, crisp mountain air. As I sat on the side of the mountain with my head in my hands, I began to realize something. That the reason that pink portrait bothered me was that it just wasn't her. But I realized something even more important. Maria had always known that she would die at a young age. It was apparent to me now in little things that I remembered her saying. And that's why she would always be around us and would be looking around and saying, what more joy, what more laughter, what more excitement could be squeezed into this very precious moment in which we were all standing? Because it was so obvious to me now that she had decided to embrace the reality of a short life and not just exist within its constraints, but to truly live. And why not? She knew she might literally die tomorrow. I thought Maria was so cool because she was blue, when in actuality it was because she turned up the volume on experiences for all of us when she was around. Experiences like trying to kiss as many boys in her high school class as she possibly could. I was aghast that I was not the only one. As I sat on the side of that mountain, I felt my spirit move onto a new path, one in which I, like Maria, wanted to try to squeeze more joy and laughter into every moment. And so that's why even today, all this many years later, if I'm doing something boring, like standing in a long line with my children, I will look at them and then I will start singing at the top of my voice, bop, tap, tap, too, bop, rubber tap, tap, too. And my kids start crawling inside their clothes trying to get away from me. They're so embarrassed. And I just laugh. And I think about Maria every time. And so I have a question for you. Who is your Maria? Who is it that brings you life? Can I ask you to do two things? First, would you call that person tomorrow or FaceTime them and just say, you bless me more than you know, because you never know how long you will have them. And secondly, would you be a Maria for someone else? Because in this day and age, when the best we can do is just watch the number of COVID cases rising and all the people who are dying, everyone deserves more joy, more laughter, more excitement poured into their day. Well, just like Maria, let's you and I take this opportunity to turn someone's gray skies into blue. Contest chair.
Mike, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible that you can cover so much of a story and so much of a message in 7 minutes plus. So first of all, thank you for that. Because in the time of COVID and chaos and controversy and conflict, we do need to be reminded of how much just being alive and breathing is a gift. And how did you, most people are frightened of public speaking and they don't know how to do it. And also a lot of people are Velcro to depression and anxiety. So here you have this amazing speech that now you're one of the number one speakers in the world. You can make a whole career now is guiding other people to speak because you're renowned at the moment. And at the same time, you have this extraordinary message. So can you chat a little bit about your journey with this speech?
Yes, this was a speech we were probably 3 years ago. We were coming back from a trip, I believe it was down to the Texas coast. It was certainly with my family, and we were driving back, and I was reading the book.
Is this with all 8 kids? Your wife and
I don't think we had all 8. Because,
okay, but mind you, he's got 8 kids. Okay, and he does all that he does. Okay, sorry.
We had several with us, but I was sitting in the front seat. I had earbuds in. I was reading a book, and it was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F Word. And I've forgotten the author now at this point, but in that book, he talks about and tells that a pivotal point in his life was when he experienced a friend drowning. And I read that, and all of these memories came flooding back of the feelings I had and the lessons that I learned through the loss of my dear friend Maria. I just started thinking about how did that affect me? In the book, he was talking about how that affected him. And I was saying, what's my version of that? How did knowing Maria and how did her death affect me? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it really was her life and the way she lived her life that affected me more than her dying. Her dying just kind of was the end of our relationship, but realizing that she knew that would probably happen, and the way she chose to live her life with such joy and such presence, that's what really had affected me over all these years. So we pull into the driveway, I come into the house, I sit down in front of my computer, and I just started, it all poured out. I just started writing the story down about my dear friend, and then started thinking, what were the things I loved about Maria? Well, one of them was that she was blue, and that's kind of cool. So blue, and what else is blue? Well, skies are blue and feelings are blue, and that could be an anchor all the way through there. And the fact that her skin was blue, but then her mood was always the opposite of blue. Loved playing with all of that imagery. And it just all poured out. That speech changed over time, but not materially. The spine of it was always the same.
I've known you for a few years now, and the club has about 45 people in it, but there's usually only, right now it's online, but typically there are about 20 to 30 people at a meeting, and you really get to know each other pretty deeply. We meet once a week, and we've been doing this for years. The club is called Laughing Really Matters. And I've noticed that you are such a grounded person. And here you have 10 people that are part of your family. You have 8 kids. Today I was on the phone for hours with Amazon, then I was on the phone with Apple, then I've got to make tickets to go work in Naples. I have so many things that I'm juggling in the air that sometimes I go, how do I keep my center and my joy in the middle of all this? You must have, with all of those people that you are the leader of the pack, you have a lot of saucers up in the air. And I remember that you mentioned this 80-20 law that guides you to not go crazy, but to keep your calm. Can you share that with us, please?
Yes. One of the ways that, try to get it all done or get the important things done, or I try to use to help me keep steady is that Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule. And I think it's Luciano Pareto that is credited with developing that. And so we'll often try to read back through, have written down really what I want my life to look like, and recognizing that 80% of the items that come flying at me don't get me to that ultimate vision. Usually it's only about 20% of those items that will create 80% of the outcomes. So I really try to think about, like, I can't get everything done in a day and spend some quality time with one of my children. So spending that quality time with one of my children, I try to make that one of the first things I plan and do and get on the calendar. And I'm not always successful. And there are weeks and sometimes months that I turn around and I say, wow, I have failed miserably at that. But there's only the now. Okay, I failed miserably. I could take guilt, but that's something I cannot control. And I would say that's another piece that reading writers like Marcus Aurelius and Wu Shen and Seneca, it's really, really true that so much of the time, the things that drag me into frustration are things that are outside of my control, and it's a fool's errand. There's nothing I can do about it. And so really trying to discipline my mind back to only focusing on things I can control. And there's a great phrase from an old Bill Murray movie. If you ever saw Meatballs, silly, stupid movie, I would not recommend it. But there's a great scene in multiple Bill Murray movies where he says, it just doesn't matter. And I try to look at those things I cannot control, and I try to look at them and I say, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And sometimes I have to tell myself that all day long. But finally, it kind of sinks in over time. It's, like muscle memory. And so those are some of the things that I try to do. And I'm not consistently successful, but try to loop back around and do it again.
You can feel, I love that line in Mad Men where they say when a man walks into a room, he brings his whole life with him. And I've noticed, because we have a very small room that we have our club meeting in, although it has a stage in it most of the time. Over the last few months before the pandemic, when that restaurant ran out of business, we were going to different places that some had stages and some didn't. But when you walk into a room, Mike, you bring this groundedness. Over 4 years, I have not seen you be ruffled or riled. So I really just, while we have a few moments, want to pick your mind, because that's what people are longing for. How can the world be going crazy around us, but us still occupying all of our molecules in a way where the day isn't ruined, and then the week and the months aren't ruined? So you've been married for how long?
31 years now.
So I have not had that privilege in this lifetime to be married for 31 years. What might you say are some of your top few secrets to keep that relationship grounded and to keep it going?
Yeah. And ours has not been easy. We are two strong personalities who got married, and there have been wonderful times. There have been really rocky times. And so I don't want to paint a facade on something that's not real. That's hard fought in our world. And so we try to find points of commonality. We're not really successful. We're not incredibly successful in making the minor things minors, but we've tried to do that over time and focus on those points of commonality, even as we have changed as people over the years, and those points of commonality have changed, to focus on those places where we do have commonality, and then try to give each other grace on those areas where we may not have commonality, or we may not have commonality right now. Laughter together is a big, it can, if you'll pardon the expression, it can lubricate a lot of tension. So,
but you have to have two people playing at that. You know how we're in a comedy club, so we all love laughter. We're particularly fond of it. And in my last relationship, when he'd get all riled up, I'd make a quaint little suggestion of completely covering him up with raspberry jam and and finishing the jar, and that didn't make him laugh. So you got to have two people willing to, but what I hear you saying is the same thing that you just said about your own life, is that you look at the 20% that's really important and you maximize what's important, and you don't let the small stuff, they say stress is letting the small stuff rile you. It sounds like that. But how do you insert, what's the most unique way you just inserted laughter into your relationship recently?
Oh, recently, there was something that, Julie is my wife, there was some conversation we were having, and it was beginning to get heated, and she made a statement about something that I always do. And it's a microsecond in my head. I recognized, okay, I can choose to believe that she's trying to jab me here, but she had a smile on her face. She said it in a funny way. I can choose to believe she's trying to jab me, or I can choose to believe that she's trying to lighten the mood by being funny. And almost like for 10 years, I realized in that microsecond, for 10 years, I had chosen to believe that she was jabbing me with that. And in this split second, I just chose to believe this time that she was being funny. And I started laughing, and she started laughing, and everything just kind of went, and then we saw clearly enough that we were too heated to keep the conversation going. And so one of us or the other went for a walk, and that's another thing that I used to always heard this thing about, don't go to bed angry. And I think that's the worst advice ever. I think we should always go to bed angry, because you're all riled up and you get a good night's sleep. You get up the next morning and say, what on earth was I mad about? So, but we were able to separate, take a walk, emotions dropped, and then it was easy to come to a solution of whatever we were talking about with calmer heads.
I just love that, because you're in a relationship, you're married. This isn't someone that you're dating or that you're still investigating to see where you're at. And you have these places you keep hitting together against, but the way that you perceived it before was not taking you down a place that was constructive and was bonding. So in a split second, you saw, if you reframed your version of intention and outcome, if you just saw it for the best of what it could be and allowed the laughter to emerge, it could be more more bonding. And I think if people, vitamin F, fun, play, they're not frivolous at all. And if we could have better sex, better intimacy, better laughter, give each other a break for when we're not as perfect as we want each other to be, just live and let live and have more delicious orgasmic involvement in life, we're meant to do that, and all that feelings, those upper feelings turn on molecules that turn our brain on and make us happier and make us so much more of a present human being. And if more people on the planet are feeling and occupying themselves in that way, we will have more peace. So sharing and hearing how a person like you in your life, with your family, your wife of 31 years, your 8 kids, your talk that you just are now one of the top speakers in the world, looks at that, is always good for all of us to take a little look-see into. That's what these shows are with interviews. You look-see with the moment into somebody else's life and somebody else's paradigm, because a lot of people are suffering in the pandemic, especially if they don't have these tools with their mates and they're caught at home and not going out as much. So it's good to see how somebody does it, and how somebody lightens their load of all the stuff that needs to be done. I feel like I'm such a better person for knowing you.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope to spread that out into the world. I would say in more recent years, I don't see myself as, oddly enough, I don't see myself as significant as I thought I was in the world. And so I take myself less seriously. And so things, now again, I'd never do it perfectly, but can
Good
let
caveat.
things go when just the wheels are coming off. It is little mantras that have kind of collected through the years, like it just doesn't matter, like the world can never own a person who wants nothing. And my kids are a little crazy for they hear me say this kind of stuff, and they kind of go, I can't believe you're saying that again. But little things like that, I think whatever works for you and your audience, or that finding those phrases that we can remind ourselves of whenever the heat starts rising. Just that, for some, it's like I've heard other people say 100 years from now, is anyone going to care about this? Or 1,000 years from now, is this really going to matter? And it's whatever works for somebody, but to remind ourselves in the moment for the perspective. It's not easy, but it works like a muscle over time.
Oh, I love that. So I call that emotional or spiritual gymnasium. You don't just go to the gym for you go to a gym for your muscles to get them buffed, but your regular moment to moment is your curriculum to get your spirit and your emotional IQ buffed. There's opportunity in every moment to get buff, but buff where it really, it matters on the body, mind, spirit, all of it. But what good is it to have a great body if your mind is in torment, right? So you want to be buffed on body, mind, and spirit, and it's all curriculum. So I kind of see the world as gymnasium. I don't know, sounds kind of sophisticated. Potato. I don't know.
I love that.
So we're almost at the end of the show, but now that you're speaker of the year of the world, are you going to make your living more and more as guiding other people on how to speak, or how is this going to alter what you do in life?
Right. For the near term, everything I'm trying to say yes to everything Toastmasters, because they brought me to the party, and I believe in the mission. And I've started writing a newsletter. I'm going to start writing a newsletter, especially on the virtual stage, and doing that at MikeCarrOfficial.com. And you probably start doing
Carr. So MARK.
Or MIKE.
Oh, excuse me. I was transposing. Okay. MIKECARR official.com.
Right.
Is there an at in there?
No, just MikeCarrOfficial.com.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's a website. It's a URL. Okay.
Right.
I'm spacing out by what we're talking about.
But yeah, that, and then probably, and then teachings on YouTube for various things, but I appreciate your line of questioning, because I've wondered if some of those writings and some of those teachings on YouTube should be in this realm about calming our mind and doing some of those things. So I appreciate that, and might include some of those things. And then on all the social medias, I do try to, if I find a bit of wisdom here and there, I try to put it up. And it's for some and not for others, and everybody gets to figure that out.
I think you should have your own YouTube channel or your own podcast, because you're a powerful speaker, you're a grounded guy, you're someone who's doing it. Everybody else is wanting to do it, you're doing it, and you're enjoyable. Every time, a lot of people, you merge with them and you either feel better for having merged from them, or you feel, I don't feel so great for merging with them, or you immediately want to run the other way. It's a gift. Like my audio guy, if he's listening in, Adam, you're like that too. It's such a gift in life to have some people that almost every time you're with them, you feel better for having been with them. I think that's extraordinary. And that's why I had you on the show. And I think listening to your speech, I'm going to listen to it over and over, because that's the way I feel for having done that. And I hope all of you enjoyed that. And don't forget that I have my brand new membership. We have already 100 members. We have a professional level for coaches, doctors, and pharmacists. We have a middle level for everybody to connect once a time. And then we've got a level where you get phenomenal postings every day on the newest information of what's going on in science, in nutrition, in medicine, the controversies, and you also get motivation and comedy. Yesterday, I put out pictures of me impersonating Cher in many years ago, and then I put a picture of Cher impersonating me. So if you were part of my membership, you would have seen that. So don't forget, if you want to be part of the membership, or even just take a look at what is going on in it, go to drlindseyberkson.com/membership. And if you enjoy information like that, you could always go to our website, look at the show notes, and you can leave a review. And the way to do that is at the end of the show notes. And now you know that you can check out my Carr, because my Carr has reached a pinnacle that most people don't, and he is the real deal. And I hoped you enjoyed having a few moments with him, as I did on this show today. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me, Devika. You're such a good friend. Thank you for inviting me.
My dear friend, and my friends out there that I feel like you're friends, even if we haven't met. Bye, everybody. Be well.